It's everybody's favorite day. It's Third Party Thursday. So we got somebody coming in. But we also had somebody that left. Wasn't really expecting that. Definitely have some things to discuss because it's training camp week, baby. Please stay after the intro and see what we got to discuss. Boy Green meets Wudi.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field Gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor Gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Welcome to another episode of Boy Green Meets Wudi. It is your boy James Wudi. I love when the chat is just popping off just for the start of the show. Absolutely love it. We got Boy Green right here. And like I said, it is Third Party Thursday. Whoa, hold up. Whoa, White 80. Let me check this right here. It seems like we're getting a blitz. We are getting actually the Blewett blitz. Please welcome the X Factor of Jet X Factor, Joe Blewett. How you doing?
I love it. Watching the intro, I was like, do I have like a special intro coming here as well? Like, is Paul going to do it? Who is doing it? I did not expect it from Wudi, but I appreciate it, man. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely happy to have you. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Third Party Thursday.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm happy to be here. Paul and I tried to plan this about 3 years ago now, and it only took about 3 years for us to figure out a time here, but I'm definitely happy to be on.
Well, good things come to those who wait. And I would just say on top of that, we probably should get that on a t-shirt immediately if it's not already at jetsxfactor.com. The X Factor of the Jets X Factor. I mean, that is phenomenal. One of the better intros I've ever heard from you, Wudi. So that is absolutely terrific. It's great to have Joe here. Again, Joe Blewett of jetsxfactor.com. Make sure you guys check out the site. We have it also linked where everybody is watching in the streaming world right now. And Joe, let's start off right off the top. Me and Wudi both, I'm sure, have a lot of film questions we want to get in with you. But I'm going to be honest, it caught me off guard just because, to be honest, it seemed like things have been going so well. Of course, I'm talking about Tarik Cohen, who surprisingly announced his retirement. He spoke to the media like 2 days ago, said, "This is great, man. Things couldn't be going better." And it just seemed like the arrow was pointing the right direction. And in my 53-man roster prediction I did before training camp, I didn't have Tarik making it, but boy, I had him right there if the right things happened in camp, and it seemed like all the right things were happening in camp. Did this Tarik Cohen surprise retirement catch you off guard?
Yeah, just like you said, like he just had an interview 2 days ago where he's like, I feel great, I got fat, like I didn't like myself, I'm coming back, Aaron Rodgers is a wizard or whatever he said. So you kind of anticipated him at least giving it a go, but maybe like he was away from football for 4 years. Like, do you love football if you're away for 4 years? Obviously you question it. So did it like trickle in again? Like, hey, maybe he's just not made for this type of deal. But speaking to people who are like at camp, you had Robbie Sabo, who was obviously another guy at Jets X Factor. He predicted him. He almost locked him to the roster. He said, if I had to bet, like I would anticipate him being on the roster. I think Fialco did as well. So you had guys who were at camp and they thought he was a legitimate player in camp, and that he should have been the number 4 running back, and he seemed to have some like a specially made role. And I think he said that in the interview, like specially made role as that kick returner. And he was, one of the lead guys for it, because you're anticipating having 2 just based on how they're going to have to align. And he was at least going to be one of them. And it just suddenly retires. Like, it was definitely weird. And I legitimately thought he was going to be running back 4. So.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it, the godfather of Jets X Factor. That's Robbie Sabo, one of our favorites. John saying one of the best guests ever is currently on the show right now, and Joe Blewett, you damn straight he is, which is terrific. So let's get to that as a quick follow-up here. Let's go to Robbie's argument that almost a roster lock, so to speak, for Tarik Cohen. Now that chess piece has been removed from the board, when you look at roster construction, are the Jets keeping four? We also had Bodden, who I think was huge. Nick Bodden being off the roster, get some tight end, fullback, H-back versatility there, potential as well. Are the Jets keeping four no matter what? And is that fourth now? So you have Breece Hall, you have the two rookies. Joe Douglas only cut one rookie ever that he's ever drafted in the same year. That was Zach Kuntz, and he was immediately brought back on the practice squad. So those two seem like locks along with Breece. So is there a four, and is that four Izzy in your mind?
I don't think it has to be, right? Like there are teams there are teams who only carry three. I know the Jets have done it in the past. I don't remember the exact years, but there's definitely been years where the Jets had only three running backs. I don't think it necessarily correlates like, hey, now he's off the roster. Well, who's the running back for? It's not a necessity. It could be a spot for Eric Watts or McGregor or Tack McKinley or Jason Brownlee, Malik Taylor, like whoever it is. I don't think it is a lock that Izzy's on the team. But it is interesting in terms of like the Bodden stuff, like who's going to play that fullback role for the Jets, because I think they averaged about 8 snaps last year in terms of the fullback per game. Some games it being 13, some games it being 3, obviously, but the median number was 8. And you're anticipating the Jets moving to more counter power scheme this year, more so from zone last year, which obviously every team runs a combination. There is no team that runs strictly zone. Like even the Niners, who are famous for the wide zone, they're going to run power. But the Jets seem to be leaning more towards counter and all that stuff. We played 8 snaps last year. You're anticipating the snaps probably going up for fullback this year, based on the scheme change that we're all anticipating, or at least I'm anticipating. So who's going to fill that role? I think it's an interesting question with Bodden as well.
Actually, let me do a quick follow-up. I lied. On that question, is it Jeremy Ruckert? Who's the favorite? I love how when you're talking, you're like, who could that be? We'll find out. You're like a very good, like if there's like a talk show and you like kind of almost answer it with a pressing question that we throw out to the audience, and we'll find out after the break. So like that was good there. So who would be the favorite to take up those reps? Again, Nick Bodden, in case you guys missed it, was released. So there's no true fullback on the roster right now. Who would be the lead guy? Is that Ruckert? Is it somebody else we're not thinking about? Who would that be?
Yeah, I love it. I know you do a daily show, so you have more on your plate than I do in terms of like talking. But at this point, like we kind of got to figure out how to talk about like the little things and make it seem interesting and all that, because it's dead. It's dead. Luckily camp is back, so that's good. But yeah, like right now, I don't really think that, like, I guess it's Ferkser who they picked up. Like if I had a gun to my head right now, it's probably him. But he didn't even play a ton of reps at fullback. I believe the Titans, like there's the crossover with Keith Carter, but I don't think he actually aligned as a fullback all that often.
16 reps in his career, according to the PFF analytics that are tracking position. Only 16 throughout his whole 7-year career. Yeah, I really don't think there is a guy. And Ruckert, like we all love Ruckert, Long Island, all that stuff. I think his documentary thing drops actually tonight, which I'll watch. I think that's the Jets. Like I think they might have fallen off a little bit with the One Jets Drive stuff. Like recently with the documentaries, I think they've been killing it this offseason with that. I've really enjoyed them. So I'll watch Ruckert's tonight. But the Ruckert has the capability to do it. I don't want people to think that I don't think he has the capability to do it. My problem with Ruckert is he's very volatile. It's like one play he's blowing up a guy, ass in the ground. He's fighting Michael Clemens in practice. Like he has the mentality that we like, but then because of that aggression, he's over his toes. He's not balanced, and he'll completely whiff. So it's either really, really good or really, really bad with Ruckert, and not much in between. At least last year. So I think he has a capability. I think he has a physicality. I think he has the strength. But can he play more under control? That's the biggest question. So I think there's a possibility that Ruckert could do it. But right now, gun to my head, hey, do you want him taking 15 reps at fullback for you every single game? I personally would not. That's not saying I don't think he could do it. But in terms of like the starter past that, Ferkser, I guess Ruckert, probably not at this point. And then people are talking like, oh, Corley could do it and all that stuff. And Allen, like there's a difference between pass blocking and Brandon Allen being a good pass blocker and then having to lead your way through a hole to a middle linebacker. It's completely different type of ball game. So right now I would say Ferkser 1, and then probably Ruckert 2, but the fullback might not be on the roster. It could be a thing where like last year they cut, Bald and then brought him back right away. That's a possibility as well. Could be. Go ahead, Woody.
We will definitely be looking I actually was thinking about Rucker. We don't talk much about him on this show. I think Boy Green and I are kind of in two different spots on, how we feel about his projection this season. But I know you recently also took a deep dive into Tyler Conklin, the tight end one, and his all-around skill set. So I guess my question is, how big is that drop-off from Conklin to Ruckert? If something were to happen, God forbid, I got the wooden desk right here, so I don't have to go far to knock on wood. But if something were to happen to Tyler, how steep is that gap between him and Ruckert?
Yeah, Paul's got it right there. It's big, and I'm not saying that because Ruckert could do it. Like, he has the capability. I actually think he's probably a better athlete than Conklin, but Conklin's done it. Like, he's been a top 10 tight end in terms of receiving the last 2 years with the worst quarterback play we've ever. So people talk about it with Garrett Wilson, right? Like, hey, 1,100 yards, all this stuff. He could be a 1,500 yard guy. Like, why do we not apply the same thing to Breece Hall or to Conklin? Like, Conklin is a guy who's getting 600-700 yards with Tim Boyle, the worst quarterback I've ever seen. And I've seen, Hackenberg, I guess, never technically played, but like, we had some terrible quarterback play. So for Conklin to do what he did last year, like, look at his contested catch situations. Like, he was, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it feels like he was like 8 for 8, up the seam multiple times versus the Texans, versus the Chiefs, versus the Eagles, maybe. Like, he's pretty good contested up the seam. His routes are really good. There's many situations where he's beaten a linebacker. And again, he's not the best athlete in the world, so he's not going to create 10 yards of separation, but there's so many plays where he has 2 or 3 yards of separation and the quarterback just doesn't see him. So to me, Conklin's a really underrated player on the Jets. Like, for a guy who like to go off this year, and I don't think he's going to go off in terms of volume because the Jets have Breece, they have Garrett, they have all these guys who are deserve touches, but Conklin's going to be a really, really efficient player for the Jets this year. And I legitimately think he's a lock as like a top 10 receiving tight end in the league. I think he's better than people realize he is.
Oh, baby, sign me up. I think for our fantasy football people in the audience, Tyler Conklin might not be, if you don't get one of the top guys, that's what I would say. If you don't get like your top guy, Sam Laporta or God knows what have you, and then you just say, you know what, F it, let me just wait. I'm just going to get some mid guy. Wait to the end and go grab some Tyler Conklin action. May not be sexy. People going, oh, wow, what a great addition. But you look at that. T-Conk action. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. That's for damn sure. I do want to stay on offense, though, and go to this because this has been an interesting point of contention. Joe Tippmann and the center issue, snapping the football. Nathaniel Hackett, no worries whatsoever. Everything's dandy. Didn't have any of those issues last year, is what Nathaniel Hackett said. But I saw several people from Jets X Factor throwing the challenge flag and trying to saying that perhaps that wasn't true. Give us some of the details on that, because I heard several Jets X Factor people immediately stepping up saying, Hackett, what the hell are you talking about? There were several issues. What were those several issues? Can you provide a little bit more context to the Tippmann snapping situation that perhaps this isn't the first time that we've seen some of this happening?
It's either one or two things, or maybe a combination of the both. It's either Hackett's completely lying to us or Hackett's an idiot. Then there's not much else there. It's just like, again, he figured out that Parsons was fast after the Cowboys game. We knew he was fast prior to it. We knew Breece Hall can catch. Does he just not understand football? Does he lie to us? Does he not know that we have replay and we can watch these things? Because it doesn't take a film expert to notice snap location. Like, it's not something that I need to evaluate. Anybody could do it. Was the ball, there were so many times last year where, and I think it went down, it probably dissipated a little bit as the season went on. But there were still plenty of reps where, it's not necessarily like a fumble, but a lot of times where, Tim Boyle or whoever's catching the ball all the way out here, and then that takes you away from your drop. It throws off the offense. Obviously, the drop is tends to relate to the route concepts and things like that. Takes you the extra second. Now you're not hitting Garrett Wilson as he's coming out of that dig. Now he's already 2 steps, 3 steps into the break of that dig, and now the ball is out late and all that stuff. So it definitely affects, the timing of the offense. So, and really, like, even past that, like, it only takes 1 or 2 times of him. Let's say that Niners game. The last drive, he starts to get the yips a little bit. He throws the ball over Rodgers' head. That's a loss. Like, it's happening only once or twice, as it could be a huge problem in the season. We saw it with the Giants game. I think it was Xavier Newman's first snap of the entire season is a fumble. Yeah. So, and we still won that game. That was one of the more awful games I've ever watched. And again, just like quarterback play, I've watched some really bad Jets games, even though we won, which, congrats on that one. But yeah, no, it was there, man. Like it was there during the season. Again, it might have lessened as the season went on, but 1,000% it was there, and it's happening now again. And some people say like, oh, well, just snap the ball well. It's like, yeah, I'm sure he's trying to do that. Like he's not trying to snap the ball well. Sometimes it's a mentality thing. Got a lot of pressure. I got Quinn Williams in front of me, lined up over top of me. I got a Hall of Famer behind me. But if he's getting the yips now in training camp practices, what's going to happen during the Super Bowl? Hopefully he doesn't do it there, because we're going to all lose our crap. So it's an issue, and he needs to fix it undoubtedly. I'm not turning the meter up to 100 in terms of concern, but I'm slightly concerned at this point with the snapping.
Okay, let's put an official number on it. So you went exactly where I want to go. What a professional. What a beautiful segue. Okay, 10, you're as concerned as you could be. Good Lord, can the Jets sign a center tomorrow? Or 1, it's an absolute, you're Nathaniel Hackett. No issue whatsoever. 1 to 10, that's kind of the scale. Where are you on the concern for Tippmann here as we're doing this live show on August 1st?
Probably like a 3 or a 4. Like I'm not super, maybe even a 5 at some instances, like if it continues. But I would say like a 4. We'll call it an even 4. Because it's been there. It happened last year. It's happening again, and it's not something where like, hey, work on your technique necessarily. It's like the problem is my hand has to get up so freaking fast to block Quinn Williams. He rushes the process, and when you shortchange it, has a higher trajectory, or the trajectory is off a little bit. So it's more of a mentality thing. Like, hey, my first job is to snap the ball. It's almost like a receiver looking, not looking the ball in, snap the ball, then get on the move. But it's hard for centers. You have to reach and do all this stuff, 3 techs, whatever it may be. So it's definitely a hard spot for centers to think about it. Like, again, like you talk about like, players having their hands on guard and being ready, your hands are starting from here. You have just like boxing, the same kind of thing. Now start with your hand between your crotch. It's it makes it a lot harder, so or admittedly, it's definitely a hard spot for centers to get their hand up, quickly enough to reach or get your hands, just on the defensive tackle in front of you. But with that being said, your first job is snapping the ball. Snap the ball, figure it out.
100%. And just to carry over to that, excuse my Guatemalan, but if you skip the first step, then the fucking rest of it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you don't snap him the ball, then I'm going to get 2 hands. I'm going to square him right on Quinn Williams. This is going to be great. And then you snap the ball to Grandma on the stands, and the play's over. Geez, I would have had this great block on Quinn. But the first thing, the same thing with the receiver. If you don't catch the ball, the 6 spin move I'm going to do at the 45-yard line, doesn't matter until you do the first job. So no doubt about it. Go ahead, Woody.
Definitely pretty concerned. We talked about that in the last episode of this show. And something I've talked about on a lot of episodes. Somebody's name that I said many more times than a lot of other names is Conor McGovern. I've been saying him. I know Tippmann was a fan of his mentorship and everything. Obviously he started a lot of football games for us for years. I'm scratching my head. I feel like I might even be missing skin right there. I'm just scratching because I'm confused as to why, Connor's not on the team right now. And even when Aaron Rodgers was talking about the O-line and how, he felt like they have 10 deep, right? And he talked about, we got these tackles, we got the backup tackles. And then he pretty much just said, we got this guy who could also play inside, this guy who could also play inside. There's no backup center. What is happening there? And do you feel like if your last name was Douglas, would you bring in Connor or another center to this team for the training camp?
I wish my last name was Douglas. I have a few more million in the bank account, but yeah. So I definitely would I don't know. So the only reason I could see them not bringing in McGovern is, one, they have too much faith, and I think unwarranted faith in their backups right now. I didn't see anything from, Jake Hansen, Xavier Newman, whoever else we're throwing out.
Schweitzer, maybe.
Yeah, like Schweitzer. But I think like he's the backup interior offensive lineman right now for like all 3 spots. But you need more than one guy, right? Like we saw 47, 80 different line combinations last year. Like I'm not comfortable with just Schweitzer there. So it is Schweitzer in those 3 spots, but that's not enough to me. Like you need at least 2 guys there to back up 3 spots. Now maybe with McGovern, there's, it's a two-way street in terms of contracts, right? Like the Jets only offered him 1.9 million last year, which I believe is the vet minimum. So they're probably doing that again. And McGovern can be sitting there. Okay, I know the Jets scheme. I'm comfortable there. I'll wait until a training camp injury and just hope for 2.5 million. So it's probably that with McGovern. And maybe the Jets are on standby if nobody gets injured. So it's that. And or a combination of that and maybe the fact that, like, hey, the Jets are moving to more of a power counter type deal. You want to move guys off the ball more. McGovern is more of like a finesse center, so he's not going to be the best in that scheme fit. But still, like, I don't, looking at the interior offensive lineman out there, and I really don't know a lot of names out there right now, I don't think you're going to get much better than McGovern. So it's probably a thing where he's waiting for an injury, but sign me up for McGovern if the Jets can bring him in.
To the 200 people that are in the room right now, make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe. Also, follow Joe Blewett at that very handle. You can see that on the screen, and make sure you do that on the old Twitter, Bird, X, whatever the hell we're calling that these days. So make sure you guys hit that up. Now, Joe, we're about to go super deep. Perhaps uncomfortably deep for some people that are here in the comments section. But
you better watch out there, Paul.
That's a good point. Probably should, but well, we already got the scuba gear on, so we're going in. Right. And there's some musical chairs that happened this offseason for the Jets in the secondary, and I'm curious what your reaction to it was. And I was specifically talking about Isaiah Oliver goes from corner to safety. And then Jerk Bernard Converse goes from safety to corner. So we're having a lot of rotation, and I've heard Saleh talk about it both publicly to the details, the why he decided to move it based on whether it's physical traits, history, depth perception, any of these reasons why he believes he wanted to move these guys around. In any of your analysis, do you have any take on why they move these guys around and what it could mean? Again, as we're looking ahead to 53-man roster construction, keeping 4 or 5 safeties, keeping 5 or 6 corners, you start playing that math game and who's more likely based on some of these moves. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, that was a little bit interesting because I think JVC in college, he was like Oregon State or whatever it was. He went to LSU, but I think I forget if he went from safety to corner or corner to safety, but I know he was going to play, or at least I anticipated him playing safety with the Jets. And that's where he initially lined up. Now, maybe I would guess that, hey, his frame is good for the outside. But in terms of maybe it's the physicality thing too with JBC. Like, I didn't think he was the best tackler. So you put a guy who doesn't have the best physicality at safety. If he's the guy to make that game-saving tackle, can he do it? I don't remember him being the best, tackler at LSU and in college. And sometimes people ask me like questions about film and stuff from like a couple of years ago. And like, I've watched 4,000 snaps since then, or evaluated like 40 other players. I completely forget. But with JBC, I think he struggled a little bit at tackling, so you probably don't want him at safety. Put him at corner. He has the size to do it. He has the athleticism to do, or somewhat the athleticism to do it. See if he can thrive there. And then Oliver, in my opinion, one of his best aspects of his game was actually getting involved in the boxing and when he's playing a little bit of like slot corner, getting involved in like run fits and tackling and stuff like that. So he's not the best athlete in the world. Oliver, he's a little bit like he's a little bit stiff like the hips and things like that, and he has a good physicality to the game. So JBC is a little bit more of a question. Like, I'm not really sure, but I could definitely see the fit for Oliver at safety because he offers you the versatility. Corner and safety, like a strong safety and a slot corner can play a lot of the similar roles anyway, in terms of like their coverage responsibilities. So he's already done a little bit of that type of role at slot corner. And I don't think, again, he has the best like movement skills while also being good in the box, like physicality wise. So Oliver makes sense. JBC is kind of just a wild card. Okay. He moves well. He has the length to do it. Let's see if he works.
Again, we're speaking of Joe Blewett of JetsXFactor.com, a film junkie. If you go over to Joe and you tap your nose for Film Junkie, baby, and he can hook you up with your fix and get you raring and ready to go, which is spectacular. I want to do a quick follow-up here just because we're swimming in the same waters. It was going to go back over to Woody, but I'm curious here because we don't know the status of Michael Carter II. He hurt his ankle, and Saleh spoke yesterday, day off today. They're back on tomorrow. And we'll get some of the action that's going on. So we don't, but it doesn't look like it's super serious. But it's a good little temperature check on if MC2 was to go down, who is the guy to step up? Is it Eckles? Size-wise, you think Eckles can play slot, but he was a boundary corner in college. And then vice versa, go to somebody like Quantez Stiggers, who's another interesting guy. If MC2 was to go down, how do they reshuffle the secondary? Is it just one player stepping up into the slot, or are they switching guys from boundary inside and then someone else to the boundary?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I think if the Jets, if that were to happen, you might and it might not be the full-time look, but they might go big nickel and then put Oliver in the slot and then have him as like a corner / safety deal, because he's played some slot before. But my problem is, like you said, with Eckles, I'm trying to remember if I remember him playing at any time in the slot. I don't think he has, so he doesn't have experience there, unless there's like maybe the Eagles game where everybody's running all over the field. Sure. I know Michael Carter II at some points was outside in that game, so Eckles might have been in the slot, but to my remembrance, he hasn't played there a lot, so that's not necessarily a fit. Stiggers is an outside guy. Like at this point, he's an outside guy. He's a lot of development to go, but he fits with the Jets because, like, you know, in terms of the CFL, they played off. You know, their receivers can start running at the line, or before the snap is even happens. So they played off coverage a lot, which correlates to at quarters coverage. The Jets, the coverage of the Jets like to or tend to run is more quarters and 3. And some people say it's 3 still. It's quarters and 6, 100% more than cover 3 at this point. But so Stiggers is more of an outside guy, and that's what his CFL tape definitely translates more to an outside corner. And the thing with Stiggers too, in terms of being a slot guy, and something that's a little bit unappreciated with Michael Carter. Michael Carter is great, like all around guy, because not only do you have to now guys, you can't use the sideline as your extra defender. They have a 2-way go. You're involved in the run game. You have run fits. Michael Carter II blitzing all this stuff. So not only do you have to be able to move with slot receivers, a 2-way go, really shifty guys, you also have to be able to tackle. Like, it's slot corner is not an easy spot to fill. They should sign Michael Carter for that reason. But with Stiggers, my biggest issue with him in his film was his tackling was brutal in the CFL. Like, I like a lot of what he does. I think there's a lot of good skills and movement and all this stuff, mindset. His tackling, and I'm not even I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, but it feels like he missed almost every other tackle at the CFL level. Lord. It was one of the worst tackling corners I've evaluated since I've been evaluating Jets players. So it was quite bad. Now hopefully he could rebound from that and learn how to tackle. My only concern is that coaches talk about it. They don't really practice tackling at the NFL level at this point, because they just don't have the time to do it, or the actual training camp time just to allow that full contact. So I really like Stiggers as a prospect, but you're talking about him in the slot, being involved in run fits and stuff like that. You do not want him there unless he completely changes his game in terms of tackling. So I would say it's probably Eckles, gun to my head, but also I'd anticipate the Jets mixing in a lot of big nickel with Isaiah Oliver filling that role.
Wow. And while you were just talking, I was even thinking about how they banned the hip drop tackle. Not sure how much that's going to impact the Jets defense. I guess that's actually a solid question to ask right there. Do you think that'll have any a major impact on the Jets?
It really depends on the refs. The refs are so hot or cold. And funny story. It's not really a story. One of my financial guys, we have a financial advisor. Me and my wife go to him. He's actually a ref in the NFL, and we were kind of talking about some of this stuff.
What?
Yeah, he's a ref in the. I'll get his name. It's Jim. I'll get it out after. But no, not. He's not like a big guy. He's a sideline guy, but he does some games. We actually mentioned a little bit and I'm not gonna try to out him here, but sure. He mentioned there is definitely some player biases that we think hey, the Chiefs get these calls. He's there's some of that. It definitely happens for sure.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Which he admitted to. We talk about the hip drop tackle, and he doesn't like the rule at all either. What the heck? I remember his name. It's driving me crazy that I don't remember my financial advisor's name, but yeah, he's an NFL ref. I think didn't they come out after the season said that there only would have been 2 or 3 calls for the hip drop tackle?
They did. So they made it. So they've done that with a lot of rules where they say, hey, here's what's going to be enforced. Don't go crazy, because based on our tape study, essentially, of the calls, that it only would have happened in these instances. So yeah, I believe that's what I heard too.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to text my wife, and then I'm gonna message you, Paul, and let you know who that guy's name was. It's driving me crazy that I can't remember it. But
that is funny though that you go to financial advice and you're like, "Hey, wife, go figure it out with some other guy. I need to get some X's and O's with the zebra over here." That's
it's actually, so her dad knows like everybody, and he's involved with them because he was like a state champion a football coach in Jersey for Keensburg, and then he went to Nebraska as like a position coach. So like he knows some guys. That's my father-in-law. So he hooked us up with him because, like, refs, that's not their full-time job. They have jobs outside of refereeing, and his is being a financial advisor. But nonetheless, it depends on how shitty are the refs. Like, I don't know how often they're going to call it. Like, what exactly is a hip drop versus, like me, if I tackle a guy and then swing around him because he has momentum, like, is that technically a hip drop, or do I have to be like running towards him and grab? Like, I don't know the actual rules. Like, we still don't know what a catch is, like 30 years into me watching. So like, I got to actually figure out what a hip drop tackle technically is by the letter of the law. So I don't think a ton. I think the Jets are a pretty good tackling team in general. Mosley's a good tackler. Quincy's a good tackler. So in general, Chuck Clark is an excellent tackler as well. So I think it'll probably affect the teams who are weaker tacklers. But with that being said, it was only called 2 or 3 times last year. How much is it really going to affect anybody? I really don't know, because the refs are they're so inconsistent.
Well, let me ask you something that will definitely affect some bodies. I can't sleep because Hassan Reddick hasn't shown up to work. I had to work today. I worked. I think we all are working men. And Hassan hasn't shown up, and too many people have climbed into my DMs. I don't know. There's climbing
in. I've heard sliding in, climbing in. Wow.
We got Will McDonald. You better shut your mouth, man. All right, it's Will McDonald season, baby.
Yeah.
I know how Boy Green feels about that. I know how I feel about that. I can open up page 85 of my diary right now. But Joe Blewett, how do you feel about that? Is it indeed Will McDonald season? Do you think he would be ready for that type of workload this year?
No, like we've always been as Jets fans, right? Like this Ryan Spadola. Remember him from camp? Like, that receiver, like he's gonna cut. Like we've always kind of elevated guys. I'm not comparing Will McDonald to Ryan Spadola or anything like that, but we're taking quite the leap to say, hey, a guy who had 25% of the snaps last year, 4 or 5 sacks, wherever he had, is now going
McDonald. Yeah.
Okay, 3 for McDonald is now going to be one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Quite the leap to make, in my opinion. Considering that Reddick was like top 5 in the last 4 years, right? With sacks.
Yeah, he's he's 4th, I believe, in the last 4 years. Yep.
Yeah, so he's going to be one of the better edge rushers in the league from doing pretty much nothing last year. Like, I'm not ready to make that leap. Now, if this was a year where the Jets were not expected to compete, fine. But like, we're going for it all this year. Like, let's get Reddick here. Now, with that being said, like the Reddick situation, it's really interesting because we could play the what if game. I'm sure you guys have. I'm sure, Paul, you do a show every day. You've talked about all the what ifs and the intricacies. Oh, well, the Jets said they would get, they would give him some money. They said that they would extend him in the season. Did he agree to that? Did he not? Like, should we blame the Jets for, handshake agreements aren't like, they shouldn't be valued in the NFL. Like, you got to get pen to paper with these guys. So me saying, oh, well, handshake agreement, you're not going to hold out. Like, that's not good enough from Joe Douglas. So like, there's so many different avenues we could take in terms of the actual like discussion of who's in the right, who's in the wrong here. But just like in general with Reddick, it's interesting because was their plan to trade a 4th round, or they traded a 3rd round pick from Reddick? You're most likely going to get a 4th round comp pick if he walks, because the Jets got to re-sign all their own guys. They're not going to be big into free agency. So was their plan, hey, we're going to trade basically a 3rd to trade down around into the 4th for a 1 year of Reddick? Like, is that worth the trade-off? That might have been their thinking. So then you only diminish the value of the trade if you add on money, right? Like, their thinking was, hey, okay, again, we trade down 1 round, but we get a top 5 edge rusher for 1 year. You start throwing on, $10 extra million, then again, it kind of diminishes the value of the trade in the first place. So I don't think people are saying, oh, the Jets are just going to give them more money. Why? Like, why are they going to do that? Like, we need that money to re-sign Sauce and Michael Carter and Conklin and whoever else. So I don't think they're just going to give up like funny money, like attaboy, pat you on the back. Here's money for being a good guy. But at the same point, like, it's just interesting to see who blinks first, because the Jets need Reddick. Undoubtedly, he's one of the better rushers in the league. The Jets put a lot of emphasis on that. But I think Reddick needs the Jets more because he's 29, 30 years old and wants another big contract. He can't just not come in and not play. That's just not going to happen, because then Jets retain his rights for the next year, right? And then obviously he's a year older as well. And for the people who are concerned, like, oh, well, Reddick will just come in and loaf it. Well, then he's not getting paid. So like, he has to come in and ball out. So it's just interesting, because I think people tend to say, okay, we're just going to throw extra money onto this. When again, you have to understand, in my opinion, at least, I think that diminishes the value of the trade in the first place. So I think he probably gets guaranteed money, couple of $1 million in incentives, but that's about it. I don't think the Jets just say, hey, here's $25 million for an attaboy. Like, we need that $10 million next year.
Yeah, we're swimming in the same waters there, Joe, as I evaluate this situation with Reddick as well. Again, we'll see how it continues to play out. He's the one who's now up to, what is it, 1.1 million in fines. So, okay, control rights, contract tolls, all the fine situations. It seems like the Jets are just fine if they just keep holding the line like Mel Gibson. Hold! I think it'll work out. We'll see if that is indeed the case. Earlier, I'm going to be honest, Joe. You probably love when you hear this, when someone tells you this. You revved my engine a little bit earlier in this interview. I just got to be blunt. You said big nickel. And I wasn't thinking Isaiah Oliver. When you said big nickel, I'm like, ooh, baby. He's talking about my boy, Ashton Davis, who I've been absolutely in love with since the Cal days. And it's been a nurture, okay? He didn't just show up a big, jolly, green, giant-ass mother, okay? He came. It was some nurturing. It took some time, some TLC. But Ashton Davis, big nickel, I loved when I saw that last year, baby. When you plug and play a little Ashton Davis and you think about the possibilities, right play, right time, tape study, being around the football, Ashton Davis, captain playmaker, baby. Huh? I know you did some articles earlier this offseason talking about Ashton Davis as a possible, safety starter in this room. Ashton Davis, big nickel.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a possibility. But like, okay, so like for that rep, what are they asking that player to do? Like, is that play going to be a blitz, or he's going to like fill in the run fit? Okay, give me Ashton Davis. Is that guy going to match a slot receiver 20 yards down the field? Okay, give me Isaiah Oliver. But it was a good point. I think Ashton Davis would definitely be a part of like filling in for Michael Carter. And Ashton Davis, you got a little bit of Isaiah Oliver. You got probably some Eckles. I don't think it's like a one person, fill all for Michael Carter, because he's so versatile. He could do what Ashton Davis can do, Isaiah Oliver can do, and obviously much even better than those guys. But I think Ashton Davis would be involved in that solution as well, for sure.
Ashton Davis, there you go. Stock up, baby. Joe Blewett is on that trend. The next jersey you're going to put on that blank white wall in the prison cell you're currently in is slapping Ashton Davis jersey over there, baby. We would love to see it. By the way, let me throw this up real quick. We have a new member of the Boy Green Coffee Club, baby. Play those shots. Apparently, he said his gifted membership just ran out, so he just bought it. But either way, that works the same way, baby. So welcome back to the show. We appreciate you. Go ahead, Woody. We'll throw it back to you.
Nice. I got a question. I know I feel like we're talking a lot about depth, and I like that because team has been injured. It's been injured a bunch. So right now, with Morgan Moses out, he's coming back soon. No one's losing sleep over that. Tyron Smith being Tyron Smith, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen Olu and Carter Warren, take reps at the tackles position. What I know about Carter Warren is that he played last year, and Damian Woody's a huge fan. He wanted him to actually start. He was like,
straight up, yeah.
Carter year. And not too many people were a fan of that, myself included.
Yeah.
Can you share, the film Junkie, what have you seen? Should we feel good? Should we feel bad? What should we feel about Carter Warren coming into this season?
Yeah, Paul, by the way, with that nose tap thing, I've misconstrued that. A couple bars I've been in, people walk up, they go like this. I'm like, you guys want film breakdowns? Like, what are you talking about?
Let me meet you in the back. Let's go talk about it.
Yeah, we went to the bathroom. They're expecting something, and they're like, I got to film. Okay, so Michael Carter's much better in this coverage. Like, okay, I got to get out of here.
I'm sorry.
But we were off. What do you want? What are you looking for? So in terms, Woody, just one answer or one word answer here. You were just referencing what was the question you just asked? Because I got off on the Coke thing.
Okay, Carter Warren. How we feeling?
So funny. It's funny that you mentioned that because I actually got into a little bit of a battle on Twitter with I think it was Damian Woody and Lee Draduzible, who went at me a little bit for the Carter Warren thing, which is funny. And I'm not trying to call out names here, but the same guy who wanted Carter Warren as a starter, or who's criticizing me for saying he probably shouldn't be a starter, then 3 months later was saying that he's not comfortable with him as a backup. So it's just weird that he was saying that he should be a starter, to then saying, oh well, the Jets needed to draft Olu Fashanu because he needs to be the backup tackle. So 1 month you're telling me that he should potentially be a starter, to then saying maybe not even a backup. It's just weird how he kind of bounced on that one. It's just I don't know. And then because then after that happened, he said like, oh, like, you don't know the NFL development, whatever, or like he wasn't that bad. I think I put up like 36 plays in a row of him getting absolutely demolished in a thread. There was not much response to that. But nonetheless, yeah. And again, like the Jets are great in a lot of spots, like again, awesome roster. I legitimately think they're a top 3 roster in the NFL. So like when I talk badly about somebody, understand that I'm not just a negative Jets fan. What I could say with Carter Warren is I didn't love him coming out of Pitt. I thought he was a little bit, and again, this is all relative because somebody in the comments is going to say, oh, you're saying he's soft. He would whoop your ass. I get it. Yes, he would. Relative to himself, Carter Warren is a softer player, in my opinion. He was coming off of injury. Which is, again, maybe he didn't have a camp and that's why he was so bad last year. But realistically, Carter Warren was terrible last year. He was awful. So do I want him as a backup right tackle? Not necessarily. Now, could he have developed? Sure. He obviously could have. But like, if you're saying, hey, Morgan Moses is going to be out for 5 games, it's Carter Warren as your right tackle. Are you comfortable with that? No, I'm not. Like, I think they could add somebody else maybe. They probably don't realistically, and maybe he did progress, but based on what I saw last year without seeing anything in camp, I am not comfortable with Carter Warren. He got his ass whooped last year quite a bit.
Okay. By the way, another new membership coming in here. Play him. Famous actor Ray Romano was just gifted a membership. Ray, welcome to the Boy Green Coffee Club. Ray Romano, he's a subscriber to the Boy Green channel. Okay. Ray Romano, I won't question it. I'll just accept it. Ray Romano, I guess, welcome to the Boy Green Coffee Club. Good Lord have mercy. But I do want to do a follow-up where you were just swimming. So shout out, by the way, to Uncle Tio, to 411 on New York Sports for that YouTube membership. We appreciate you and Ray Romano, I guess. But the thing I wanted to ask you, Joe, is in your position, you are a film junkie. Okay? You're this film connoisseur. And I imagine, because I've seen a few of them, I forgot about the Damien one you just brought up. I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that now. But like Jordan Whitehead, he got into some battles with Michael Nania on social media. And this is Jets X Factor is for, I want to make sure I frame this correctly. It's for a Jet fan that wants more. That wants to go above. It's not just surface level stuff. It's above that. You guys do a really good job with that, which I love. But when you guys go to this above level, it almost challenge. I don't know what the right word is. I'll just say this. I think it's for Jet fans that want more. Let's put that in a pocket. And then when you guys put this stuff out there and you're a film expert and you're coming on here, I see all the time that players will challenge you guys. Jordan Whitehead did it. You had Damian Woody's a former player. And when that happens, I see a lot of people immediately rushing to the comments. See, Joe, you don't know crap. Screw you, Joe. Michael Nania, screw you guys. How do you defend yourself? Because you almost have to be in a defensive position. Speaking of football, you almost have to be in a defensive position all the time because a lot of just casual people will default take the side of a former or current professional football player. And then to your point, you have to circle back the other way. Damian Woody, look what you said, pal. And you got to almost keep them accountable. But I'm curious about that constant battle that I imagine you have to do as you represent yourself as a film junkie, and you are one of the best, and you always constantly have to do that on the other side. How do you live your life in social media and doing that when that constantly, and I would imagine forever, is always going to be a thing between you and fans?
What's the thing that people say, like posting ghost, whatever it is. I like, listen, like you got kids, I got kids, I have a wife, I have a full-time job. Like I don't have time to be arguing on Twitter with a lot of these people. So a lot of times I just post and whatever you're going to say, you're going to say. Like, I'm not going to prove, John Davis 12345 X378, whatever his handle is, the like, difference of opinion. Like, he's always going to take the football player side over mine anyway. So why even fight that battle? Like, to me, and it's a niche thing for sure. The film breakdowns, but like for the people who have been watching me for years, in my opinion, maybe this sounds like I'm a jerk or whatever, but like I think my resume speaks for itself in terms of like people who have watched me and the players I've been right on or the players I've been wrong on. Mm-hmm. So I've had a decent hit rate in terms of like evaluating these guys, and like whether it be like not liking a guy like Evan Neal. I said I wouldn't draft Evan Neal into the 4th round. He's a bust. Like, he's terrible. I don't know. I have no idea how people said he was a top 5 player. People say he's a generational player. People I respect a lot said he was a generational player. And I'm looking like, what? Like, how? Like, he's so bad. I don't understand how people like this guy. Not saying I'm not wrong. I'm wrong sometimes too. 100%. But I think you kind of just at that point, let your work do the talking, right? Like, if you're gonna be surface level, arguing with people on Twitter and whatever, like, that guy's not going to agree with me. He's not going to change his opinion no matter what I say, So for the people who actually want to look into it, then, the proof is in the pudding. I'll put the film up there. I'll do the breakdowns. And I have a decent track record with like getting guys right or wrong or whatever it may be, if I had to say so.
I love that. Read my resume, bitch. That's what Joe Blewett says. Hey, I mean, check the bio, you motherfucker. But I am curious though. So like, okay, I get it with Jared Joe Blow thing. Yeah. What's bring us into the mind of Joe Blewett? Perhaps a dangerous place, but I like diving in. Let's see. I'm therapist Boy Green today. When a player, let's call it Damien Woody, let's call him Jordan Whitehead, let's call him. I'm trying to not think of like Aaron Rodgers because like that doesn't seem fair. But
that would
like,
happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, probably. Just a regular player that's been in the league for like a decade. You post a film thing. You say, hey, here's what's going on. Player comments immediately and says, you don't know what you're talking about. What's your first thought in your brain to respond to a player that says that?
Yeah, so and it depends. Like, it depends. Like, sometimes there's a like, and it hasn't happened a lot with plays where a guy like, oh no, I see it this way. Okay, I completely like, and I'll be like, okay, I get it. Like, you see it that way. I see it this way. And typically I will defer to a player. And I think Doozable's on that once to me. Like, okay, I can see why you say it this way or whatever. Okay. But I would say with players, I don't. At least in my interactions on Twitter, I don't get them tending to be like, hey, you said this was cover 6 or cover 4, or this coverage is really palms or 2 trap or whatever it is. Like, I don't really get a lot of that. It's more like based on opinions. Like, you said he's good, I say he's bad. Like,
I see.
At that point, like, who's going to win this argument? Like, nobody's going to change either's opinions. So I tend to not get a lot of stuff on the actual film breakdown play where people are questioning. Good. Don't know crap about this. It's more opinions. Like, you say he's good, I think he's bad. Which, again, who cares? But with like Jordan Whitehead and stuff, it's like, hey, listen, like, you could say you're great and all this stuff, but then like, why did you allow like 12 touchdowns this year? Like, you allowed the most out of any safety in the league. Like, it kind of, your resume doesn't speak to you. It speaks more to us. Like, we say you're bad, the stats say you're bad, and the film says you're bad. Like, you missed a ton of tackles, dude. Like, I'm sorry, it is what it is. He missed a lot of and like, that was the funny thing with him coming from the Bucs. Everybody's like, oh, great tackler. Whatever the year, his last year at the Bucs was, and now he's obviously back on the Bucs this year, but prior to like 2021, I believe it was, or 2020, go watch his first game against the Falcons and tell me how many tackles that guy missed against Cordell Patterson. Because all I heard was he's a great tackler. The first game I watched in preparation for the film review, he missed like 4 tackles. I'm like, what are people talking about? Like, what is this? So yeah, I would say with players, it tends to be more opinion based than like actual factually based on plays. And then if it is going to be, and then if it is like opinion based, like I said with Carter Warren, I put up a 36 play thread. He didn't respond to it because there's 36 plays of him being absolute trash. I can pull it up right now. It's still there, So like, I tend to just post evidence. Like, if you're going to talk shit, then I'll post evidence.
All right, there you go. By the way, another random
shit to talk.
Yeah, that's for sure. We more memberships, baby. So thank you to Clancy, New York Jets here in the middle of this show. Roll it. Reading glasses out here. Not sure why I referenced myself as daddy in here, but I can't take that back. Okay, anywho, here we go. Read these. We got Dano Jets YT for YouTube, Lawrence Yance, Red John. We got Laney NNC, Racing Jason, all becoming members of the Boy Green Coffee Club. The cup is overflowing with all of these gosh darn memberships flying in. It's absolutely beautiful. Let's try one of these. God bless America. Thank you to Clancy_New York Jets for all the love for the memberships. And as Jared B just put in there as well, you also have access to our Discord channel. So feel free, click that link for everyone who just joined the Boy Green Coffee Club. You'll get free access to that as well. I do want to work another one in here, and you've done, I believe, columns on both of these guys over the last couple of months. And it's one of the most interesting things that there is, because it's your guys' analysis, it's what the Jets tell us, and then what fans believe, and you have to kind of like Venn diagram everything together. It's a defensive tackle 2 conversation where the Jets allow Quentin Jefferson to go. They allow all of these guys to mass exodus from the team, and there's a variety of defensive linemen, not just defensive tackle, but a variety of defensive linemen that leave. They bring in 2 guys, in Javon Kinlaw and Likey Fotu, who are interesting. So Javon Kinlaw, relatively speaking, is a bust as a former first-round draft choice, but the Jets have had such a rich history with developing talent that it almost makes me, no matter who they sign on defense, again, if they sign my grandma on defense, they're like, oh, they must see there's something on tape, right? Like, because of all the development stories, you could go through them all, from Michael Carter II, Quincy Williams, JFM, of waiver wire guys or draft and develop guys. So I'm curious, when you evaluate the tape on guys like Javon Kinlaw, Likey Fotu, and you evaluate whatever the tape tells you, again, the tape never lies, they say, the eye in the sky never lies. You evaluate it, and then do you have to take a step back and say, damn, the Jets must see something that's beyond the tape here, because they have hit several home runs at all kinds of different positions?
You almost went to the classic Warren Sapp sound right there. The Jets must see something that we don't see here. Yeah, like with the and like, obviously I give them like credit, like they're smarter than I am, they know more than I do, all of that stuff, but like still some of the decision making, I don't know, man. Like, I still question it sometimes. Like I watched Lakin before he got, like when he got signed, I'm like, ooh, like a little bit of an overpay for this guy. CJ Uzomah, I'll still never understand how CJ Uzomah got more money than Tyler Conklin. Conklin was always the better player. Like, how did that happen? Dalvin Cook last year, I know that's a little bit of a rough spot, Boy Green, but with the Dalvin Cook stuff, like that's something that I urged them not to do, because he was not good with the Vikings, and then he was sucked with the Jets. So like sometimes I don't think they're above questioning, right? Like I don't just like bow down to the man necessarily, while also giving them some credit, right? Like I'm not just going to agree with everything they do. They've sucked for so long. We should be able to question them. I'm not saying this regime does, but like we've seen the Jets make some bad mistakes, right? Like maybe not drafting like a Patrick Mahomes because we had Christian Hackenberg. Those type of decisions, they didn't make the right move. But in terms of like the Kinlaw stuff, the Fotu stuff, the only thing I will say, and I feel like I'm trending negative here, is I think Leaky Fotu has a higher ceiling than Al Woods. I'll start with that.
Ooh,
I think that Kinlaw has a higher ceiling than Quentin Jefferson. I'll start with that.
Great. All right.
What I can say is at the time of each signing, I like Quentin Jefferson's Seahawks film better than Kinlaw's 49er film. I liked Al Woods' Seahawk film more than I liked the Cardinals' Leaky Fotu film. Now, I am not saying that they cannot be developed and be even better. I think Kinlaw could be better than Quentin Jefferson. I think he's a higher ceiling because he's a better athlete. What I can say is at the time of each signing, I like Quentin Jefferson better. Quentin Jefferson got half less money, and apparently, I don't know if they're still working with like carrier pigeons or whatever they're doing in the Jets front office, but how they didn't get contact back to Kinlaw or to Jefferson, and he signed with the Browns. Like, how do they not so if Joe Douglas is busy, they can't, another intern or whoever doesn't pick up the phone and say, hey, wait 5 minutes, I'll get Joe on the phone. It's like the same thing with math last year. Like we can't do math in the Pats game. Not even division, not even multiplication. We can't add 1 + 1 = 2. Like so I don't, and I'm not trying to like crap on the Jets too much, but like, I don't know,
bizarre.
man.
For those, again, who missed on the Quentin Jefferson thing, he signed for the same deal that he signed with the Jets the year prior, 1-year deal for $3.6 million. And Cleveland offered it. And apparently, according to Quentin Jefferson and his camp, they reached out to the Jets, said, hey, Matt Gist, I'm coming to, I will jump on a jet and jump to the Jets. And then crickets. He's like, fuck this. Cleveland might pull this deal. And if the Jets pull it, then I'm left high and dry. See you, suckers. I'm going to Cleveland. The Jets go, geez, 5 minutes late. My alarm. I hit snooze. How the fuck did that happen? But anyway, that's neither here.
Like legitimately, that's something that's not going to be explained to us ever. But how does that happen? Like, how did the Jets just not answer the phone to match their? I'll never understand it. And again, like the math thing, like we're talking about addition on the sideline here. Like, how are you 6 yards short? Like, I don't know what happened there. But yeah, like I would have personally let Quentin Jefferson back again. But Kinlaw has a really high ceiling. Like there's a reason he was a first round pick. The dude's a monster. You've seen the picture. He had terms of, I think it's questionable. I don't think you can add 30 pounds of muscle in 3 months. That's a story for a different day. But he is massive, man. Like if he's 90%, if he has 90% of the explosion he had last year, but he has that now at 330 pounds, like watch out, because Kinlaw is a monster. So I could see Kinlaw absolutely going off. I think it's a higher ceiling than Quentin Jefferson. I undoubtedly do. But again, I think he was over like 7.25 or 7.5, whatever it was.
Yeah, 7.25, 6.91 guaranteed. So basically a fully guaranteed deal, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, compared to Jefferson, who, in my opinion, again, had better film, lower ceiling.
3.6.
Yeah, 3.6, half the price. It just doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. But with that being said, I'm excited for Kinlaw, one, because of the weight added. He did struggle, and he mentioned it, that he struggled to anchor down versus double teams. That weight will help. And then on top of that, like the Jets do have a history of developing these guys. He's a freak athlete. Hopefully he can develop it. Hopefully he has 10 sacks this year. I have to eat crow a little bit. Like and even with the evaluations and stuff, like if I say this guy sucks and he's great, I'm a Jets fan before I'm an analyst. Like, people don't tend to understand that. Like, I want the Jets to do their absolute best. Like, I go to games, I turn it off. People ask me a question like, "Oh, what did you think about the Jets doing cover 4 in this look?" Quarter 3 at 6 minutes left, they ran cover 4. They should have ran cover 3. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Like, I just watch the game as a fan. Like, that's what I am first. So I root for the players to do well. So I want Kinlaw to ball out, and I think again he could be a stud. Leaky versus Woods, I'm taking Woods all day. But Fotu does have a higher ceiling in terms of his athleticism. So I could see him producing more as a rusher, but not holding down as well in the run game.
I am looking forward to that future Dr. Phil episode where Dr. Phil's like, let's bring him out. It'll be Joe Blewett, Michael Nania, and then it'll be me. All right, we got to talk about Dalvin Cook. And I'm going to be like, geez. It's going to be like an intervention-like situation, and it should be a juicy episode. That should be a juicy episode. There's no doubt about it. All right, Woody, do you have one last one before we get Joe out of here?
I actually don't. I was going to say,
okay, beautiful.
I really like your last few answers, and I feel like personally they help me. As you said, husband, father, this, you're doing this, but like that, the compartmentalizing of everything, and the argument of opinion versus fact. I mean, because like I told you, those DMs, man, they just be climbing on in. So all of that, I feel like your feedback was great. We had a bit on this show for a big fish where, I had the fishing rod and I was reeling it in. It's my son's toy. He, is 3. He, it's his toy. So if he doesn't want to share it with me, he doesn't have to share it. So I do not have it. But
but you would have used it.
Blewett,
you would have used it. Oh, I see.
Huge fish. It was an honor to have this conversation and to get your insight on this show in front of my very eyes. I'm very appreciative of your time today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Woody. I appreciate you as well, Paul. Yeah, it's like you said, like in terms of compartmentalizing the stuff, it's like you could have 100 arguments on Twitter, and even if you're 100% right, you're going to change one person out of 100's mind. Like, why spend 2 hours angrily tweeting on my phone where I could be spending time with my wife and kid? Like, I post again. I let the proof be in the pudding, and it is what it is. If you can argue with the wall, 'cause I'm not going to argue. Let's say, hey, you want to come into the argument and have good points and actually have a discussion, I'm completely willing to. But when people start to come out like, oh no, you suck, it's like, okay, like there's no point. There's no point of this. So I'll just turn the phone off and pay attention to stuff that's more important than social media.
There you go. Prioritize your family. So important. That is a beautiful, wonderful PSA at the end of this wonderful show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the 300 people in the room live right now. I know there's a bunch of people that watch the videos after the fact. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe, show your support. And again, follow Joe Blewett for all the Film Junkie. And again, just do a couple of pictures doing that, and then it's going to be a nice thing. We're going to build it. It's going to be trending. Absolutely. There's no question this is going to take off. I'm sure my work is going to absolutely love that. People are going to start walking up to me and doing this. My job is going to be absolutely thrilled. So let's start it. Let's do it. Yeah, there we go. That's beautiful. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Woody, any final thoughts?
Hey, if you don't want to do that, throw up the X. All right, the X Factor of Jets X Factor, Mr. Blewett, Joe Blewett. Again, thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Yeah.
Take care.